aware of. So that 80% that's really controlling your life and is that phenomenal reality making machine, rather than a 20% which everybody just feels stuck with. This also would just make a lot of things way easier in life. It would make a lot. It would make a lot of stresses just go away once you get it right. Especially in the time where we're so comfortable, we don't really live with any real fight or flight responses. Any real fears, contextualize that, we don't live with really any animal threats. And if you think you are living with real threats and you have never endured an animal threat, then get a reality check. Once you're able to get that comprehension that the way of adjusting how you are imagining sensory information, so adjusting how you feel towards what you feel, see, and hear inside your head in these multiple levels, because I believe that each time, say I'm imagining myself up on a screen and you can move that screen anywhere you want, it might just be quite useful to see it up there. That's the first level of disconnecting from the experience mentally enough to adjust how I feel about it. To fears, this makes things feel safer. And I can add another level of disconnection here. Although if you put that level of disconnection into context, then you get what Virginia Satir used to say, and you get what she says in context. Although once you go past the second level of disconnection, things get much harder to say in realistic terms, because the first level of disconnection is basically saying, how do you feel about watching yourself on a screen? The second level is basically saying, how do you feel about seeing yourself, watching yourself do this thing? And of course then it gets a bit more convoluted, because you're saying, how do you see yourself watching yourself doing this thing? Which is kind of like, what does that kind of even mean? Like, asking yourself how you feel about a feeling makes a lot more sense. And according to the book, people usually don't have to go past the second level of disconnection from a phobia. If you put, like Virginia Satir said that to people in real life anyway. How do you, if they're blaming, if she's working with someone blaming someone else, she often used to ask the person how they were feeling about feeling the level of anger inside of them. So a second level of disconnection there would be saying, okay, how do you feel in yourself watching yourself feel that angry towards them? And if you put this into energy world terms, if I were to feel this energy ball of anger right here, then I could just disconnect from the energy ball and just deal with another energy ball of thought over here. Feeling, how do I feel about even noticing that energy ball, and how can I deal with that energy ball? what options do I have available for me to deal with that energy ball? And in that internal visualization, which you can get more creative with than you can with the editor on your computer, because everything's in your imagination, right? Although in today's times, I just think imagination is just being drained out of most of the people that I know, at least, except for me. If you combine, I've combined this with my model of viewing the transition states between my 4 custom layers of power poses, power gestures and movements. What does that mean? Virginia Satir, on one of my layers, for her family stress stances, has in my model, in my way of thinking, there are 4 stress stances. One of them is what I call a transition state between each of them. The transition state is the state that I assume people switch between every time they even just think about switching between these states without realizing it. Say when you get to person blaming, a person who feels worthless from the blamer, and that worthless person, that person just feels like they're taking all the blame. If those 2 people begin to switch roles, then they switch. Then one of them will go through the irrelevant transition state to feel like the stress just didn't matter, switch to being more powerful than the original blamer, and then the original blamer will say, oh, my reasoning doesn't really matter that much, and then they'll go into the really needy, grovelly, I'll agree with what you say, regardless of what you say, state. That's a transition state. Why is that important? Because your system has specific ways of rationalizing and making meaning, consciously or not, like with you realizing it or not. No matter what situations it is. You go through the same situations all the time without realizing it. Same situations and meaning. Regardless of what culture you're in, it's dependent on evolution. It is how your system rationalizes stuff based on the environment it's in and how it's evolutionarily designed to act. Although that's mostly clouded up right now because of just the insane world we're living in right now. So, the irrelevant transition state is the most important state to me because it is very useful for basically rationalizing why to not care about stuff you're not in control over. And I believe that the technical term I give it is internal perception positions. These internal ways of adjusting how you feel towards your experiences can really amplify the usefulness of how these states are designed to make you act, because it is very useful to create very strong triggers rapidly to an experience that you've had, like for neutralizing fear. If you go ahead and experiment having a middleman between you and the situation that you want to neutralize, say with the irrelevant stance that makes excuses for why something is irrelevant very obsessively and in an exaggerated way, then you just could feel a lot safer just acknowledging that the situation even happened. Although, let's say we used my Knuckles confidence dream state, which is basically, no, let's go with Amy Coney. If we imagined ourselves as Amy Coney, as Superwoman, that is viewing the experience in front of us, or is talking to a person that we don't like, or is about to do the move for us, and we adjusted our sensory experience in order to make us feel as good as possible about what we're about to do, then it could adjust things so that we have advantages that we don't realize are there. Hold on a second. I'm remembering if there is anything more in my head. Please tell me how I can make your day, if I have already made it. And until I remember something else. Oh yeah. Applying the stuff on your own. I have to, when I'm going through this stuff, I feel like I have to figure out specifically how to apply it to myself, because I have no one else, sadly enough, who will do this work with me. Like, I just think that around half the people in my area are just losers, because a lot of the time I present solutions and I'm just coming up with all these solutions and they do nothing. They just complain about their problems. I hate it. That's one of the reasons why I just hate being here. I'm not designed to be here. So, and John Grinder also commented on this too, is there's a massive incongruity in neurolinguistic programming practitioners. Like the neurolinguistic programming certification is just not worth a lot nowadays. It's worth basically nothing unless you have actually been trained by the people who actually knew what they were doing, which is the founders, if they even have useful stuff. Although I know the power poses are quite useful for reducing fear and really making yourself feel good, because I used it before my triumphant death gap, my double basketball death gap, because I generated the feeling of confidence for no reason other than to make the move easier, and it reduced this cloud of clutter, or feelings clutter. Here, technical term for that is perceptual clutter of doing the thing. Like, why do you think doing it at a height is different? Doing it on the desk app is different than doing it on the regular floor? You could say the obvious stuff. The technical way of saying that is because your system sees the height, and it also imagines feeling the impact. Imagines, so internal experience, feeling, so internal feeling-based experience, the impact. Your system judges how good enough your joints are in order to take the impact of the move. And it judges if you know that you have the skill and you have the confidence in yourself to do the thing. Like John Grinder's unconscious assimilation is, again, just an incredibly technical term and convoluted, unnecessary term. For say I'm at the death gap. Say I'm at the death gap. My system judges what height I'm at, what level of skill, what level of muscle I have to take the impact. And all of that information compiles to give my system an internal feeling, this internal experience, which you can adjust with everything that I've said in this video, to make me commit to the move. Why is this important? Because if the theory does indeed work, then you could remove a lot of risk. You could just go through a visualization with these levels of connection and disconnection towards yourself. And I did this to Instagram whilst I was in the show, and it kind of worked. You could feel, you could get a bigger comprehension towards if you are even going to be capable enough to perform a dream trick. That could reduce quite a lot of injuries if it does work. Tell me if I have made your day by being a smart ass. Well, smarter than the average person at least. And very pragmatic too. And I'll see you mother flippers in the next video. Can I flip you? Because I definitely would want to just flip you in real life. I've front flipped over 4 people at once before. I'm a terrible person. I have flipped over 4 willing children at once. I just never touched them once. I absolutely love flipping mothers. Like Christmas. There was an event in Southwold in Christmas where I was the only person really doing anything worthwhile as an event, an unplanned event. Got a crowd, and I flipped this mother for her holiday, to make her holiday. I make holiday dreams come true. I make holiday dreams come true. See you.